Hello there, Gandalf. What are we up to this time?
Yes, I am here.
I have made some progress deciphering further pages in the Black Book, and I wish to share my discoveries with you. I deemed it wise to request a number of strong warriors to accompany me, and while King Thorin at first refused, in time he came around to my position. He needed a reminder of his people's history, and of the great deeds his forebears accomplished when their resolve was tested. Mm-hmm. And I presume it was your idea about the red axe? Well, I am sure I did not know where you might have gotten that idea, Pineleaf, and King Thorn is welcome to do as he likes. I merely suggested a number of beneficial outcomes that might be reached by such a course, and if the king under the mountain agreed with my proposals, certainly he has demonstrated wisdom befitting a king. In other words, yes. But that is behind us, and we should turn to more pressing matters. What is this I have heard about an expedition to the Anvil of Winterstith? Yeah. Unfortunately, I was busy doing something else when they went off, apparently. But yes, they were supposed to go there to take care of Karazgar.
A raiding party of dwarves sought to oppose Karisgard at the anvil.
The Anvil of Winterstith has long been both blessing and curse to the dwarves that seek their fortune in arid Mithrin. It was a blessing for the years it remained sealed, trapping many dangers behind its frozen surface, and that was the case for most of its history. I say it was a curse for the periods when it thawed, setting loose those evils upon the mountains. I understand that a raiding party of dwarves recently sought to oppose the efforts of Karazgar, the weeping warrior at the anvil of Winterstith. Will you find some of these dwarves and hear their report? I wish to know what befell them at the anvil, for it concerns us most directly. It seems one of those dwarves, Muthro, is recovering from his ordeal northeast of here, on the upper level of Scarhold. Speak to him and ask him what happened in the raiding party, Pineleaf. Durin has given to me a chamber in the northeast corner for my use while I stay in Scarhold. I will meet you there after you've learned what befell the dwarves in Winterstith. All right, so talk to Muthro, who's somewhere up this way. It appears Muthro is at least in one piece.
You wish to hear about Hurin's expedition to the Anvil?
W-
The memory is painful.
Would you then if you asked somebody else? The memory is painful, for though we achieved some success, many good friends gave their lives at the cursed place and will not return. 24 of us there were, armed with our finest weapons and our strongest armor. Our scouts spied Vithug Wintermind flying north about the withered heath, making for the anvil of Winterstith, and we knew Karazgar drove him thither. The drakes and worms of the frost horde seemed to sense some terrible presence behind the frozen surface. Did Karazgar seek to claim this power for himself? As we approached a great crack in the anvil, Vittig flew overhead, stirring the frozen wind into madness all about us. Karazgar taunted us, but Longbeard, Zelruka, and Stoutax alike laughed at him. Your empty words do not frighten us, we shouted at him. But it was Karazgar we should have attended at that moment, Pineleaf. For as Vituk drew near the crack in the anvil, mighty drakes from the frost horde sensed the presence of their kin. They flew from the rent of the ice in terrible numbers, seeking to put an end to their foes of old. Little did they care for our lineage, or for the different families arrayed before them. No, they saw dwarves bedecked in plate and leather, dwarves wielding blade and axe, and that was enough. The fighting was fierce, and by the end of the melee, the ice was speckled with blood, that of drake and dwarf alike, but only the warriors of our band remained alive. We were not yet triumphant. Before we could do much as to catch a breath, a great worm crawled from the crack in the ice. Isvitha the Gluttonous, she was called, ancient and hungry. And even as we shouted our war cries, she thanked us for bringing her dinner so near. But she had not accounted for the sharpness of our dinner knives, or for our own appetite for battle. With the door warden Isvitha slain, the way into the anvil was no longer barred. Karasgar took advantage and steered Vithug Wintermind into the gap. We had no choice but to follow. I'm fatigued, friend. Perhaps Dolek will continue the story of our expedition for you. He is to the southwest, on the upper level of Skarhald. Another survivor at least? So at least two survived then. Yes, he looked to be in a reasonably one piece. Of course, there could be all sorts of wounds and bruises beneath the armor, but that's another matter. Hello there. How did the attack on the anvil go?
Yes, I fought with Hurin at the Anvil of Winterstein.
Yes, we stood among the corpses of frost rakes and saw as Vita the Gluttonous breathe her last. Together with my fellows, I strode past the jagged ice and into the great cavern within the anvil itself, following the path taken by Karasgar and Vithug Wintermind. The frozen cavern was not empty, though it did not contain our prey. Frostbound hobgoblins and whelps of the frost horde stood up against us, terrible foes, but of a sort I was unafraid to face. As the last of them fell, I brandished my axe and prepared for whatever evil dared to show itself, knowing that I and my fellows were ready to defy it. I did not know. I did not know what awaited for us. We moved forward onto the smooth surface of the long frozen lake, and that is when we saw them. They were arrayed on a ledge above us, ghostly figures of kings long dead. I swear I recognized some of their number, though many had been dead for hundreds of years or more. Aye, these were kings who vanished seeking the citadel, but instead of finding lost Starafgathal, they perished in the unforgiving north. For many of them, Winterstith proved their undoing, and yet there they stood, and I beheld them with my own eyes. Nay, it was not so. Dragon magic lay heavily upon that cavern, moving illusions against us. It chills my heart to remember the desperate fight, but still we pressed on, leaving the unpleasant sight of our fallen kings behind us. Into the frozen maze we stepped, thinking the worst lay behind us. We were wrong. Ebor will tell you more. He's to the northwest. Well, they like delegating the storytelling, that's for sure. Now let's see, who is next? Ebor. For the third part of the story. And Ebor looks like he's still breathing at least.
How much have the others told you of our expedition?
I understand you seek to hear of the Horin's expedition to the Anvil. How much have the others told you? The illusions of the dead kings, you say? I'm glad I need not speak of them, Pineleaf. That was accursed dragon magic, I tell you, and unnatural. In the frost maze, we at last encountered our prey, Karazgar, still astride Vithug Wintermind. We engaged in battle, and this time no strange illusions could stay our assault. With all of our strength, we leapt at the drake, seeking to carve the record of our battle into his hide. It seemed beyond hope at first, but slowly the battle began to turn in our favor. Give me your power, Karazgar, the drake cried, or we will both perish. Oh, but the weeping warrior bears no love for anyone but himself. As the drake at last succumbed to his injuries, with his final breath, Vithu cursed Karazgar. His words echoed against the ice and stone, chasing Karazgar deeper into the tunnels of the anvil. If I close my eyes, I swear to you, I can still hear his terrible voice. Mother! Avenge me! Should we have turned back? No dwarf of our company then wished to retreat, but now it is easy for those of us who made it back to Scarhall to say we should have. But instead we followed Karazgar, and so it was that we beheld his confrontation with Himril Frostheart, brood mother of the Frost Horde, and herald of winter. I say confrontation, but it was a one-sided affair. Hrimel seized him in her jaws and flung him around like a child's toy. She fell upon us then, and that is where many of our company perished. She leapt into the air and landed upon us with such force that the very ground beneath us crumbled. We fell a long way, and those of us that survived ran for our lives along the lower tunnels, while Himru pursued us, and we tumbled down the final slopes to safety. Hirimo sent out a frigid frost after us, and the crack in the anvil was sealed. She had trapped herself within, and let's be thankful whatever power caused her to do it, or she might have followed us all the way back to Scarhald. 24 of us went to the anvil that day, Pineleaf, but only 14 dwarfs survived. At least Karazgar and Vithu died and will no longer trouble us. That at least is a happy result, and Horner's expedition must be deemed a success, despite the cost to us. Very well. Well, that takes care of Karazgar at least, so we won't have to worry about a second promise, but he could still have tricks up his sleeve. You never know. And let's see what Gandalf has to say about all this. And that, Gandalf, is what happened.
I think the dwarves are wrong. I believe Karazgar still lives.
Yes. What? You do? Yes, it may have been merely good fortune that caused the Herald of Winter to seal herself once more within the glacier, Pineleaf, but I see another power at work. At any rate, the dwarves of Ered Mithrin have proven fortunate, for once. They need not worry about Hrimo Frostheart on this day, although a day may come when they must. I do not believe Karazgar is truly slain, however. It may be that the Herald of Winter has given the Weeping Warrior his fill of battle, for now. But I have heard whispers from the dwarves of this place that a trail of blood and rust led away from Hrimel's chamber. I am certain that Karazgar lives. Oh boy, he seems to be one that has a lot of trouble getting rid of. But let us turn this matter that brought me hither, Pineleaf. I wish to speak with you concerning the Black Book of Mordor. Ooh, and what about this little black book?
I have spent much of this time studying the Black Book, seeking to learn its secrets.
I have spent some time reading the pages, and I'm no nearer to learning how the book came to be hidden in the secret chamber located in Hale's home in Yarnfast. But that is not to say my study has been fruitless. No, there is much to be learned from this tome, and I have made some progress already. Listen to my words, and I will share some of the knowledge in it and have imparted to me. And what have you learned?
Allow my words to paint a picture for you, my friend. A picture from long ago.
Some halls of memory, huh? And what is this picture? Much of the writing within the Black Book of Mordor remains a mystery to me, Pineleaf, but I know enough of the ancient Dwarvish to make it be a beginning. The tome was written by a dwarf named Voin, the thrice great grandfather of Heel Tail Spinner. Like Heel himself, Voin was one of the Xalruka. He kept a home in Yarnfast more than 1,000 years ago. But the black book you found within the hidden chamber there is all that remains of his life. Voin himself appears in no other record that I have found. The writing of dwarves, or at least of the Longbeards I have known, is generally straightforward and to the point. Not so that the Gelruka. Indeed, while I have not had occasion to study many works of the dwarves of the East, Voin's writing in the Black Book seems more convoluted than others of his kind. He writes in multiple languages, using many different runic alphabets. Furthermore, some of these scrawlings are clearly written using a cipher, or I'm not a wizard. There are curious gaps between some of these lines and some of these pages. Heel's cryptic ancestor may have written some of his account in hidden letters, Pineleaf, but unless we learn their trick, they will remain invisible for us. That is a pity, but I warrant the visible writing will keep us busy enough. He writes often of the lost city of the Far Gothol. It seems to have been a preoccupation of his. The Far Gothol. I wonder if the staff I found earlier has anything to do with that. These are the halls of memory, Pineleaf. I would name the Thamas Rened to a dwarf such as Voin. They would be Zulum or Islik Doom. But these are not physical halls. The halls of memory are given shape by the words of Voin. The columns rise from his dream as a dwarf, the walls from the bounds of his experience. But there is a gap in my knowledge. The halls of memory remain incomplete. Walls of fog, dense mist, they hindered our pursuit of knowledge. Only the words of Voin can banish these impediments. I waited for as long as I could. In the end, it was not so very long at all. It was a cold land, a hard land. Evil dwelt there. The fog dissipates. Proceed, Pineleaf. Proceed. Gandalf flips through the tome, seeking the right pages. Okay. All right. And this way, twisty halls. Ah, here we go. It was to Mordor that Voin ventured. But when did he go? And why? Voin writes of Mordor in his memory different pages of his tome, but I cannot tell if he speaks of one journey or several. The writing of these pages is confused, and many of the details are obscured. I cannot say when he had ventured into or for what purpose. I believe when he reached the end of the book, he continued to write on the overleaf pages, seemingly at random. That makes a true accounting of the chronology difficult. And yet, there are some conclusions to be made. This black bound tome bears the mark of Sauron, and it is not a symbol commonly found beyond the borders of his land. Voin went to Mordor, and when he emerged from that land, he brought with him the Black Book. I cannot say for certain if he filled his pages while still in Mordor or after he left that place. Much else remains hidden to me. Some events is here described, but Voin has obscured his identity of those involved. Can you make sense of it, Pineleaf? Can I make sense of it? Perhaps we could in the next episode of Pineleaf in the North Kingdoms.